All right. Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm going to get started now. Good afternoon from sunny Central Park. My name is Ian, and I work for the Central Park Conservancy, and I want to say welcome to Central Park. We know that it is difficult for many people to get to Central Park right now, so we here at the Central Park Conservancy wanted to bring the park to you through this series of weekly walks. So you can join us every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. for a lunchtime stroll through Central Park, and today we'll be visiting the pond. Now I say lunchtime stroll, but I saw in the chat that we have visitors from Indonesia, South Korea, Italy, Finland, all over the United States, and of course, some fellow New Yorkers tuning in from a few blocks away. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's joining us today, and I hope wherever you are, you enjoy this short stroll that we're going to be doing today. You'll see photos from the park that were taken by myself this past week, and they are supplemented with a few historical images. So I wanted to thank the New York Public Library, the Museum of the City of New York, and the Parks Department, whose archives I used for these historical images. So we'll jump into the pond in just a second. We get this slideshow working. Here we go. I just want to go over a little bit of housekeeping. I see many of you are familiar with using Zoom in the chat, and it's so nice to see everyone's comments and everyone's greetings. If you'd like to add a comment, you can do so using that chat. We only have 15 minutes, so I can only expand upon one topic for so long. So I'd love to see if you have anything to add to anything I say. You can also use the Q&A feature to ask a question to one of my colleagues who will do their best to answer those. And then you'll see a couple polls pop up on your screen as well. And I thought this time I'd actually start with one of those polls so you can become familiar with those. And you'll see something pop up on your screen now. It's just, I wanted to see, I saw a lot of familiar names in the comments section, and I'm so thankful that so many of you enjoy these and tune in time and time again. If this is your first one, I'd love to hear from you. We're getting these votes in. I'll wait until almost everyone's voted. And it seems like so many of you have attended nearly all of these, and some, this is your first walk. So whoever you are, thank you for joining us. It really is my privilege to get to talk about one of my favorite places in the world to people all over the world. So sorry if you didn't get to vote. I'm going to end the polling right now and share the results so you can see those on your screen. 87 people say they have attended nearly every weekly walk. That is awesome news for us. And if this is your first time, welcome. We're going to jump right in now to Central Park. We'll see the map pop up on the left side of your screen. And the area that we will be exploring today is surrounded by this blue rectangle in the bottom right-hand corner. So the pond, you'll see on this map, is in the very bottom of the park. It's right next to 59th Street, and then it's bordered on the right by 5th Avenue. So it's one of the busiest sections of the park because of its proximity to Midtown, one of the busiest parts of New York City. We get so many people coming here on their lunch break, or maybe tourists coming to see some of the most famous sites in Central Park that we'll be seeing today. And our route today, we're represented by this little figure here in the corner at Grand Army Plaza. We'll be entering the park and then going around the pond counterclockwise. And something I emphasize on all of my tours is that Central Park is this amazing, huge 843-acre beautiful green space comprised of many different landscapes. But what I emphasize is that it is deliberately planned, and I think it's fair to say man-made, and that it was designed. And with that information in mind, it won't be surprising to learn that the areas that are today ponds or lakes, or the water bodies that we have in the park, were, prior to the creation of the park, the low-lying, marshier areas. It makes sense. If you're going to make a park and you want to fill one area up with water, you're going to start with the low-lying areas because that will be easiest. And you can see an image I've included here that shows where we're walking today. Before Central Park was created, there was a stream running through this area called the Vors Mill. You can see it goes through the park here. And if you can see my mouse on the screen, it's right over, right near 5th Avenue and 58th Street. This is where the Plaza Hotel is today. So at one point there was a stream running right through there. And just as a fun little bit of trivia, and now it will make sense to you if you didn't know, okay, that's why there's a pond here. There was some water here before, and there were people living on this settlement as well, I'd like to highlight, before the park was created. But here we are, this is what you came for, pictures of the park today. And we're entering this gate here. We're greeted by this beautiful lamp called the Lombard Lamp, which was a gift from the city of Hamburg, Germany. And highlighting it because it was beautifully refurbished this year, and you can see this fresh coat of varnish on it. And on the right-hand image, you'll see a detailed photograph I took of cherubs on the bottom of it. And it's just one of the thousands of beautiful details of Central Park, and it gets me excited to enter the park, which we will do via these stairs. You'll see we're going down the stairs, and almost instantly our ears will be on a different plane than all of the cars and buses that are going by. And in about 20 feet, you get the sense that you're in a very different place. And one of the first things I spotted inside the park was this sign, and it was a quote shared by one of our visitors who said, "I'll always remember that when everything else fell away, Central Park remained." And I wanted to go start our walk with that quote because I am personally really grateful that I've been able to have this space always, but especially in the last few months. And we go down this first path, and what are we greeted with? We want to get to the pond and see this beautiful vista, but we don't see it right away. It's blocked by this big boulder. And I love these details. Not only does it feel wild and like you're in the mountains or something, but it's kind of a tease because you don't get to see this view right away. You have to go a bit further, and there's all these clever framings of landscapes that make you have to adventure a bit further. And I think it gets it accesses a certain part of your mind, or brings about a mood that is relaxed and curious and ready to adventure. And we just have to go a little bit further, and we'll get to the vista that we want. And this is the pond. Which is a 3.5 acre body of water. But despite its small size, it's really teeming with life, and it seems like a very large space because of how it's designed. You can never see it all from one vantage point, which I think gives the illusion that it's larger than it really is. And you'll see some mallards swimming in the pond here, and across the water, this densely forested area is the Hallett Nature Sanctuary that juts into the ponds. And it's important to highlight this because Olmsted and Vox, the designers of Central Park, thought that water bodies were not only beautiful in their own right, but they also kind of accentuated the landscapes that surrounded them and made these kind of promontories look even more impressive. And we'll go up the path here. It was a really beautiful day. The season is beginning to change a bit. It's still very green, but the temperature is getting a little cooler. And I saw a familiar sight of someone playing a saxophone on this path here, which, because there are always these saxophone players in the park, in my mind, it's probably the unofficial soundtrack of Central Park. So we'll go by this gentleman playing here. And as we go down this path, we're keeping the pond on our left, as you can see. And we'll see a few subtle signs of the season changing here with this Japanese maple looking like it's changing colors just a bit, and some brown and rust color in the landscape as well. And there's still a few vestiges of the warm months, like the stone crop plant. So you'll still see some beautiful colors in the park right now. There are still many flowers to come see if you'd like. And on our right, we'll see a huge bluff here, this huge rock outcrop that's sticking out of the ground, which I think is rare to find in a park, a huge rock like this, which just gives us a special untamed feeling. And if we look at the pond once again, we'll take a closer look at the shoreline. You'll see some netting in the water here that helps prevent erosion. This was added in a renovation in 2001 and 2002 that we here at the Conservancy did, completely redid the whole pond area. And previously it was lined with concrete, which was not only less beautiful to look at, it was worse for the ecosystem because more runoff just goes into the water bodies, and the native plantings that we've included on the side here help mitigate that runoff as well, and also create a habitat for animals. And you can see some of those animals, these turtles basking in the sun here. So you can get a sense that it was still a pretty warm day. I'd say it was around 70 degrees Fahrenheit when I took these last week. And we got to probably the most famous view. Maybe it's a controversial statement. It's one of the most famous views in Central Park, and that is Gap-style Bridge. It's this beautiful stone bridge covered in ivy. We see geese on the other side of it and all these trees surrounding it. And if you didn't know any better, you would think you're somewhere in the countryside, not in the middle of one of the densest cities on the planet. This version of the bridge was designed in 1896, but the original was created in 1874 by Jacob Ray Mould. And you can see it here in this cyanotype, or this early form of photography that has this blue tint to it. And this is courtesy of the Museum of the City of New York. And you can see that the materials were different. This is made of cast iron and wood. But after a few decades, it began to deteriorate, and it was in need for a renovation, which is why we have the bridge we have and love today. And I had another cool historical image that I just stuck in here because you can see the bridge, and I think that's reason enough. And that is this photograph of swan boats on the pond. So this is something you could have come and done. This is actually apparently what the pond was famous for a few decades. And you can see on the left-hand corner the stone bridge that we have today. So we know this is after 1896, and this is dated around 1910. These swan boats were made famous by the Boston Public Garden. They caught on and they were added to Central Park. And you can't do this here today, but the lake today, farther up in the park, you can go boating. But this is just a fun image, and I think it's living in a city. It's there's something delightful about reflecting on how previous generations used the same space that you use today. And if we go on top of Gap-style Bridge, you'll get to see the round shape of the balustrades on the bridge. And then we cannot ignore the huge buildings that don't even fit in my frame here from Midtown. So this is 59th Street and below. You'll see these huge buildings towering overhead. And from the bridge on a different vantage point, you can see maybe the most famous building that surrounds Central Park, I think, the Plaza Hotel, right there in the bottom right-hand corner of the park. And compared to when we were looking at the bridge from where these people are standing down here, it is amazing. I mean, when we were standing down there, I really thought, you could look at that photo and forget you're in a city. And from this vantage point, it's impossible to ignore that you are in a city. And I think that makes the park all the more amazing of an achievement. And if we go on the other side of Gap-style Bridge, this is what it looks like. The water sort of peters out on this side. It's a bit marshier, but it's still this beautiful area. It's much more secluded over here, so it was quiet when I was walking through here, which was really nice. And it was not always this nice, actually. So I wanted to include another image from the 1970s. This is from just a period where there wasn't a lot of money going into the park to keep it looking nice, and you can see a lot of litter. So I'll flip back to what we just saw today for this image in the 1970s. And it's pretty amazing how far the landscape has come. So I just wanted to highlight just the amazing work that's been done in the park over the last few decades. If you are someone who's lived in New York this entire time, or maybe you used to live in New York in the 70s, you can chime in the chat and confirm if my assessment is correct, that the park, I think, has improved immensely in the last few decades. And you might have noticed in both of these photos that the water is petering out. It becomes less of a pond and more of like a little stream over here. And why is that? Well, actually, the pond used to extend this way more in the beginning of the 20th century. There was a few more acres of pond, but that changed in 1950. Why did that change? Well, it was actually to maintain a tradition that was being lost in the park, and that was ice skating. You can see this image of an ice festival that I got from the New York City Parks Department archives. This is from 1936. So as late as the 1930s, people were coming to the pond and ice skating. It was a cherished pastime of the park, but it was being lost because of the ice not, or the water not freezing as reliably, and it was becoming a challenge. But to try to keep this tradition up, there was a decision made to create a artificial ice rink, and that's why some of the pond was lost. And you can see another image from 1933 of people standing on this water body, which is just interesting. And you can see Midtown on the left there. And this is the view today of where some of the pond extended towards. This is Woolman Rink. It's not, as you can see, it's out of season right now. But there is ice skating here in the winter, and it's one of the few places that you can ice skate in the winter in New York. And once again, this was added in 1950, thanks to the philanthropist Kate Woolman, who donated $600,000 for the creation of this ice skating rink. And it's one of the most popular attractions in Central Park, I think it's fair to say, in the winter. And you can see an image of Kate Woolman in the middle there holding this bouquet of flowers. And she's with the mayor at the time, William O'Dwyer. Hope I'm saying that right. And then someone I know more about on the left, which is Robert Moses, who was the parks commissioner at the time of this creation. All right, so I went on a tangent there, but I felt like on the weekly walk of the pond, I had to explain why some of the pond had changed, but we'll go back to our little stroll now, and you'll see that we are on the northern side of the Howlett Nature Sanctuary. And we're not going to go in there today, but we'll walk by here. We have done a walk here before if you're curious. And on this path, there are still some colorful flowers to be seen, like these smooth blue asters I spotted on the side. And eventually we'll have to take a left at a fork in the road to go downhill and loop back to the western edge of the pond. And here is that edge of the pond. This area, I mean, it's such a small pond. Like I said, it's 3.5 acres, but because of the way it was designed, I think it feels like there's a lot to explore. And I would guess that many of you have seen the other half of the pond, maybe didn't venture over here, and it's worth doing so because it's much more shaded. You can see these howlett trees towering over us, and it's just beautiful to look at the reflections of all these plants in the water. And there's even a waterfall over here on the left that I was not able to get a good photograph of because of how thick the bushes are. But there's a lot to see over here. But there's also this great vantage point from the western side of the pond. You can see the buildings in the Upper East Side. You can see where we entered the park actually all the way on the other side of the pond. It was so much cooler and shaded over here. And there's also a small plaque on this stone wall, which I think qualifies as Secret of Central Park. And you can see it right here. This actually commemorates that restoration I mentioned, the 2002 restoration. And the philanthropists who gave a gift for that restoration, Josie and Julian Robertson. And it's a three-dimensional plaque, very much so that when it rains, it actually is filled with water and it looks just like the pond that was restored. So I think this is a really cute little way to commemorate this project that was done. And I have to show you this image just again because I love this vantage point. All right, moving along the path, we see some sunlight creeping in past the skyscrapers in Midtown, and obscured by this tree is Simon Bolivar, who's up there by 6th Avenue. And we're just kind of strolling along this path. I love just glancing at the art and landscapes that surround us. We get another good view of the western edge of the pond here. And here we are. We're going to be wrapping up in a few minutes, but I wanted to share a few more great images I took on the southern end of the pond. There are areas where you can get closer to the water if you're careful. There's a few rocks here that I was stepping on, and I was able to capture this image of mallards resting on these rocks here. I didn't mean to turn this into a duck tour, but to be honest, you know, I came to the pond and it was hard to not just, I don't know, be amused by the little birds flying by, even though I see hundreds of them all, like every week. Still relaxing to look at, and I think that's the appeal of Central Park, and specifically areas like this. I'll go back for a second. Because of its proximity to offices and busy parts of the city, I think you come here and you kind of forget about all the errands you have to run or the stuff at work that you're worrying about for, even if it's just 15 minutes, and you can see these ducks swim by in the water, like right here. And I think that is an invaluable resource to have access to. Oh, I went too far ahead. We're looking at these ducks here. I wanted to share maybe the most famous duck, at least of the last few years, and that was the Mandarin Duck. Maybe you heard about this. If you did, this was like a media sensation in late 2018, early 2019, and that was a very unusual visitor that was in the pond. So if you did hear about that, this is where that took place, and this is the Mandarin Duck that was out of place, and no one really knew where it came from. It was likely a pet or something that escaped from a zoo, perhaps. But it was all the rage for a few months. Everyone was coming to the pond to check out this beautifully ornate bird. And I wanted to actually share, I want to launch another poll and to see if anyone got a view of the Mandarin Duck here. No, okay, I didn't either, actually, and I was living in New York at the time, and I was not working at Central Park yet, and I failed to come see it, but a few people did. I'll share the results. Sorry if you didn't get to vote. I just want to get moving, but 26 of you did. I didn't get to see it either, but it was, I don't know what it was. It was one of those things that caught on, and everyone was talking about it for a little bit. And I think that's also one of the joys of living in a city is, for some reason, like something happens and it catches everyone's attention for a little bit. But anyway, we'll move on from this duck and we'll see another one. This is the end of the ducks. Sorry if I made this a duck tour, but I just paused here to look at the water, and yeah, I love just looking at the reflections of the trees and the buildings here. I think I already summed up really the feeling of it, and it is coming here and just enjoying a slice of nature while you can. And this is one of the last areas we'll visit, this little, I don't know, this area that you can get closer to the water. Once again, the pond has a bunch of these. And the last thing I spotted, oh, I spoke too soon. There's one more bird I included here, and that's just this great blue heron that I spotted. Pretty incredible, I think, that a few hundred yards from the Plaza Hotel, you can come out here and see a beautiful, huge bird that was stalking the waters around the Howlett Nature Sanctuary. So you never know what you'll find in Central Park. And I wanted to end on this beautiful vista taken from the southern end of the pond. We can see Gap-style bridge in the distance. We can see some more ducks swimming across the pond, and we see people, of course. Who knows, maybe they were taking a break from work or just wanted to go for a nice walk and relax in nature. It's one of the other great joys of Central Park is just meeting people or seeing other people enjoying nature as well. And I think it just, I don't know, it creates some camaraderie of everyone in the city just coming and needs to relax and maybe take a break from something. And once again, I'm so grateful to be able to share this amazing park with everyone. So I'll just leave this image up for a second because I think it was a really great photo I took. And I'll move on to the end. Thank you so much. We really, really appreciate your support. And I hope that you can join us next week when we do a weekly walk. I'll be doing that one as well, up the lake. And you can also go to our website in the meantime. If you want to stay connected, you can go to centralparknyc.org/mycentralpark. And there's a few other resources that you can access there, such as those other video content, but then there's also ways that you can share your story. Remember we saw that banner that was hanging on a lamp in which someone shared their story. Well, you can also share what Central Park means to you if you'd like. You can do that on our website. You can also access Zoom backgrounds like the one that I'm using right now. There are coloring pages and word scrambles and other games that you can check out. And you can also go to our YouTube channel, Central Park NYC, if you'd like to go back and watch any of our other video content. And we also do tours online that you can check out on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So thank you so much once again. It was really my pleasure to get to share this with you all. I hope I see you next week at 12:30. And in the meantime, from the Central Park Conservancy, stay safe and be well. Thank you.